Welcome to another episode of ComSpeak. Our guest on this episode is Mr. Madan Behel. Madan is the co founder and managing director of India's largest public relations firm, AdFactors Public Relations. Thank you for joining us on this show, Madan, and we look forward to this interaction over the next few minutes.
Thank you, Amit. I'm happy to be here with you again.
A pleasure. So let's dive in right away. Tell us about how you got into advertising and then public relations many years ago.
As they say, life is a series of accidents, and maybe those happened with me too. I graduated in chemistry, as you may be aware of, and the chemistry graduated in those days of license Raj had very limited options. You either worked in a laboratory or in a factory, and those who were the more extroverts became medical representatives. Now, I didn't want to get stuck to a lab or a factory plant, and therefore the next best option was becoming a medical representative. Now, the problem there was many companies interviewed me, and I would pass muster in most, but they would say you have to wear a tie, and I was like completely against wearing a necktie. Well, now we can't go into those reasons now, but I would say no, I can't, and then they would not offer me the job. Now, with that kind of a state, I accidentally again landed in market research one day in the Indian Market Research Bureau. I was sitting with some friends in the Elphinstone college canteen, and somebody said, "Oh, there's a research project. Let's go." So walked in there, got selected for a small field research project, and I kind of enjoyed it very much. So one project led to the other, and I spent nearly a year and a half in market research doing field research, and that's something that I loved. You realize after some time that unless you are a statistician or a MBA in finance or modeling and data management, you can't really get much farther in research. So I moved to tried hunting a ground which was closer, which was advertising, and joined a small course in the KC College. And after some time, I worked for 6 months as a trainee in a company called Jason's Advertising, which at that time was the seventh or eighth largest advertising agency. From there, I moved to a space selling job with Mr. Rusi Karanjia's newspaper, The Blitz. And one day I said, no, enough is enough. I want to do something on my own. So started an advertising agency called AdFactors Advertising. That's how the name AdFactors PR also comes from. This advertising agency started in 1981. Had a good run for almost a decade in our own humble aspirations. It met our aspirations. But one was always looking for a ground that one can defend on against, because the advertising business requires size and scale, and protecting yourself against your Gilbys and the Lintuses and building something worthwhile was not a very easy thing for a small independent company to do. And then we were wondering, what do we do? So we stumbled upon, I could say, a niche called financial advertising. We saw it, learned it, did a small experiment here or two, and realized that this is something we can do, and we can get into a leadership position and defend it for a long time. So that's how AdFactors Advertising became in early 90s a financial advertising agency. It still exists and is in its own ways a market leader in the niche. Now, around the time we got into financial communications, uh, the reforms process was setting in very strongly. This was when Narasimha Rao's 92-93 government came in, and it was having a deep impact on the capital markets as well. A regulator, the SEBI, was born, and it started acquiring teeth and started putting a lot of useful processes in place. The communication process was also getting regulated to some extent in that sense, and PR was becoming more and more the desirable tool for communicating with an institutionalized wholesale market. And parallelly, at the same time, we saw many new startup agencies, PR agencies. Genesis started in 92, 93. Perfect Relations started about the same time. We had Sampark coming up. Clear, the previous avatar of MSL, was around, and we found it quite interesting. And we thought maybe this was another space where we can build scale and which we can defend for a long time against the networks and the multinationals. And that's how we got into public relations. The rest, of course, is history, and one has been around for some time.
Thank you for sharing that insightful journey of how you got into advertising and PR. It's been a long journey of 40 years and 24 years for the public relations part. Tell us about how you met Rajesh and how Rajesh and you became partners in building the enterprise you created together.
Oh, I met Rajesh again, another accident. I was I was doing some small management course after my graduation in a place called Junjanwala College, and one day I met this very suave, distinguished young man waiting in the corridor, and I walked up to him and introduced myself. And that was the first interaction. Then we lost touch for a year or two. Met again. I wanted to release a classified ad for some research work, and I had heard this guy telling me that he was working with Indian Express. So I walked up to him, released an ad, became started meeting, connecting again. And at some point, I was, let's say, jobless for about 6 months. I was looking for a job. Rajesh helped me get a job in Indian in the Blitz at that time. He was in Indian Express, but he helped me get a job in. And that's an interesting story because um, he wanted to get in touch with me. We didn't have cell phones. I didn't even have a landline at that time at my house. And in his desperation to search my house, he roamed all around Bhanduk, where I was living, for an entire day, trying to search me so that he can tell me to go and apply there. And those were the kind of touching moments that brought us closer together. When I started Ad Factors Advertising, he was still working. By the time he had also moved to the daily newspaper, which had owned by the Blitz. And he remained a mentor even when I started. He was supporting me every which way. Then I think it was a natural thing that one month, 1 year or two later, he joined Ad Factors as a partner. And it's been, I think, since 1984, it's been a great going together. It's almost 37 years now.
Interesting. So we've all heard in the recent weeks of how Ad Factors is now stepping into its 25th year as a PR firm. I know there are many achievements that you would have listed over the years, but if you were to pick up 4 or 5 achievements that stand out for you, that a lot of younger firms can emulate, can look up to, and then learn to become like Ad Factors, what are those 5 achievements you would like to talk about?
I will tell you what we did. One, I think, right from the beginning, we have tried to build an enduring culture. Culture is what is culture? Culture is a set of shared values that we all believe in. For example, we decide early on we will not work for businesses engaged in tobacco or alcohol or meat processing or gambling. Now, you might say, I disagree with this, or this is a debatable point. But you set your own beliefs, you set your own principles, and you live by it. For example, we don't like to save on tax. We don't have tax advisors. Pay the full tax, pay a little more, and if necessary, get a refund the next year. This kind of value system became a very strong value system. Complete trust with your stakeholders, internally, externally. I mean, me and Rajesh have been around for 37 years. My first person who joined me 40 years ago is still here. The guy of 39 years is still here. So that kind of enduring relationships become very important in building an organization. You have to have a partner. You have to blindly, generously trust each other, and that's how you grow together. The second thing, I think, this whole decision of remaining independent. Now, it is not like I find sometimes very funny that people become $2 million and they start searching for a buyer. I don't know why. They feel insecure. They're not confident of running a business. I don't know why. They are short of cash. We decided we'll remain independent forever. So, and therefore we ran business as if we're never going to sell it. That gives you a level of freedom of action and agility that you can't get if you are under the stress that someday I want to sell, therefore I want to protect myself, therefore I want to have a margin, therefore I will not invest or invest there. So independence was an important thing. Uh, Building a market, identifying your niche, building a market leading position, and then defending it for a long time. Whether it was in financial advertising, whether it was in uh, financial communications earlier, and then public relations in general, I think we have maintained and consolidated our market leader positions year after year as we move forward. The trust of the Indian business ecosystem, I think, is a significant achievement. You name the significant events that have happened in corporate India, and Adfactors has been a part of most of them. Whether it was an important merger or an IPO or a boardroom dispute or a crisis or a litigation or a serious reputation matter or some company which had an exponential aspiration that needed to be supported with the right reputation. I can say, looking back in a history, that there are so many milestone events that we have been a part of it. That comes when the entire ecosystem trusts you as a business community, as private equity people, as investment bankers, as the legal community, as the consulting businesses. When you enjoy the trust of all of them, you really become a significant player in your niche. Lastly, I think you maintained a little agility, that you try and look a little ahead in time. Of course, things are very fast now, but even if it's 1 year ahead, 2 years ahead, and keep taking small actions all the time, so that you keep adapting to a changing environment. I think these would be the significant achievements that have brought us where we are.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing those. When I first saw your website many years ago, I found it interesting that your bio on the website mentioned the year of your birth, 1956, which gives away that you are now 65 years old. What motivates you at this age to go back to the office? I mean, you didn't go to the office for many months thanks to what we were going through, but to wake up every day and do what you do, to be energized, to be doing sometimes things that a lot of people half your age don't feel like doing, traveling to multiple cities pre 2020 on a daily, weekly basis. What motivates you and excites you to do what you do at this point of time in your life?
Yeah, sometimes I sense a conspiracy, Amit, that every day two, three people come and remind me of 65. That I think there is something sinister going on, and you are a part of it. I think there is, to answer your question, there's always so much happening. And with every passing year, if you take 1992 or 1995 or 97, since the Googles and the Facebooks and all really came into existence and the internet age started, the space at which things are happening and those things are impacting us and our clients and our stakeholders, there's always so much to do, so much to change, so much disruption, so many problems to solve, so many leaders to be nurtured, so many urgent things to be attended to. I think if you remain busy with that, age really doesn't matter. You always have your plate full. So you're busy. Through all this, I think the important source of energy is as you grow, as you evolve, a sense of selflessness when it comes. You get all the power and the energy. That you're not doing everything for yourself. You're serving somebody. And there's a nice saying in Hindi that says, "सेवा करो, शक्ति मिलेगी." अगर शक्ति वहां से आती है तो करते रहो. So I think that's a little answer to your question.
No, thanks for sharing that. You've worked on multiple, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of campaigns in the public relations or prior to that, and even now the advertising domain over many years. I know it's difficult for you to choose one, but just for the sake of younger people watching this program and for others, if you had to choose one or maximum two campaigns that you feel stand out for you, they were really benchmarks or they were really different from many things you've done over the years. What is that one campaign or two campaigns that you worked on over the years that stand out?
I think if I take a qualifying filter, the campaigns that I worked on, because Adfactors does a lot of work, and now 95% of the work happens without my direct involvement. But if I go back a decade or two or three to the work that I have done, I think there are many campaigns which created great outcomes and became defining moments, for example, in Indian corporate history or Indian capital market history. But one that remains my personal favorite, because I was an account planner, manager, executor, everything, was Konkan Railway. Now this remained great for many reasons. We had a very important problem to solve, or multiple problems rolled into one. It was a railway line which nobody believed would come in 4 or 5 years, that they promised they would set it up. Terrain was very complex. There was a tremendous amount of opposition from multiple lobbies. That opposition was manifesting itself in the newspapers almost every day with negative stories. And then on top of it, the government told them, okay, you can go and raise your own funds. We will not give you funds. And they sanctioned a tax-free bond. Now, a tax-free bond was a new instrument for the first time, and most people in India don't pay tax. At least then they were not paying tax. So it was a kind of a new alien thing. How do you weave this whole thing together, overcome the opposition, build the brand, build trust, overcome crisis, um, introduce a railway line which doesn't exist right now, it's only on paper, introduce the instrument, the capital market instrument, and sell that product. There was too many things rolled into one, and we had a time of 2-3 months to do it. The compelling socio-economic context was another thing. I mean, you had a railway line which was promised for the last 100 years since the British government. It never took shape. But there were 20 million people who did not have an adequate transport infrastructure, let's say between Alibag and right up the way down to Kozhikode in Kerala, and going through Karnataka and the coastal parts of Maharashtra. Because of the lack of adequate transportation infrastructure, there was a developmental backlog of nearly 20 years between India and between this region and the rest of India. And therefore, when you have a problem statement of that kind with a larger socio-economic context, there is a lot of inspiration by itself. So it remains a unique campaign on many parameters. I don't think there has been anything of this kind before Konkan Railway in the Indian Marcom industry as a whole, or after Konkan Railway. The sheer scale of integration, the sheer scale of engagement. We were an agency of some 18, 19 people then. But if I tell you that we went and physically made presentations to 17,000 chartered accountants in 62 cities in 11 states of the country, or met and engaged 22,000 Shetty restaurants in Bombay, or met 400 cash-rich corporations, all done by the agency through temporary help. 6 different campaigns, and overcoming the resistance of the vested interests or lobbies that were kind of protesting against it. It's a great. I can talk an entire day about Konkan Railway.
Right.
We achieved all the goals and all expectations on that. And what happened after that? Once you set the bar so high through communications, all the future problems of Konkan Railway in terms of public acceptance simply vanished. So it became a tailwind for the railway, and hence it remains an important part.
Interesting. Well, thanks for that insightful response to this question on the campaign. Very few people would have had the good fortune of creating something which is in public interest for the public good, and I've been a fortunate beneficiary of that. I've done many trips from Mangalore, my hometown, to Bombay on the Konkan Railway Matsyagadha Express many years ago. Thanks for sharing that. What's your one communications or one message for the Indian communications fraternity? If there was a message you would share as the leader of the biggest PR firm.
It's a simple question, but the answers are not simple, Amit. I think we are set for a perfect storm. We are set course for a perfect storm. We are going right into the eye of the storm. We can always see the turbulence all around, and I'm talking about the business environment or the larger socio-political, socio-cultural, socio-economic environment. And because the business will have to be navigated through the storm, you just can't avoid with the whole ocean is on storm. As a lookout and as a critical person in the system which helps navigate the public opinion or the perception part of it, I think the communication professional, whether in the comm side, whether in the agency, has to get prepared for it, has to get ready for it. And there are many dimensions to this. First of all, simply this ability to make sense. There's an important saying in management: can you make sense of things, of the complexity? So the business environment is going to be very windy. It's going to be very choppy. The waves are larger and more frequent, and they're coming to you with very, very tremendous amount of ferocity. How do you, as a CCO or a communication professional or a consultant, help the captain navigate the ship? As a lookout, sometimes as a conscience keeper, sometimes as a custodian. There are very complex demands on the individual. I think in the CCO suite, the most complex job after the CEO is a CCO. Whether the world has still understood that or no, I think if it has not, it will soon understand that. There'll be disruptions caused by technology. We are seeing it all over. Disruptions by biotechnology, climate change, demographic shifts as the world age population becomes older and older, polarization in society. Again, it's a complex subject. We can't go in geopolitics, multidimensional activism, changes in the classical influence structure of society. Even at a closer home, we know the media as we knew it has lost a little bit. Something else has replaced it. Now, if you have to bring all these factors together and say, I'm a communication consultant, I understand all this. And if you go to the definition of public relations as an arbitration process where the public opinion is the final arbiter of outcomes, then the CCO has a lot of important role to play in this whole thing. You add to that. I mean, you can just go on talking about this. If you read the recent Microsoft Great Resignation Report 2021, it predicts that world over, and this came only a couple of weeks ago, 41% of all people are going to resign, irrespective of sectors, economies, countries, segments. If 41% of your company is going to resign tomorrow, and you want to grow another 60%, 20%, 25%, we're talking about replacing your entire organization of 70% of your entire organization. Is anybody even thought through this? What is the impact on employee retention, employee communication, engagement? What kind of advocacy would require? Or if you take recent events like what's happened 2 weeks ago to a company in the entertainment space, a shareholder says, "I want management structure to be replaced." This is going to be happening more and more frequently. And I think the chief executive is going to look to the chief communication officer or the communication team to help them guide through this. And if this whole debate about when will the chief communication officer or the communication professional get a seat in the boardroom, that time is now. That time is tomorrow. And you mark my words, in the next year, 2 years, one of the most respected and sought after professional, whether on the comm side or the consulting side, will be an intelligent communication professional who has the bandwidth to understand and help the CEO navigate the whole thing. So this I would say. So there are multiple roles we'll have to play. The role of a prism through which all policy, public discussion or decisions that impact the public are taken. You as a communicator will become that prism through which society is interpreted. You become the conscience keeper. You become the advocate. Sometimes there are conflicting roles, but the wise ones are getting ready. The wise ones will get ready, and those who get ready, I think there is a tremendous amount of work to do in the future. So quite a long answer to your short question.
No, that's fine. No, it's helpful, and thanks for that. Before my next question, I'm going to remind you again to look into the camera and answer. I think you're still looking down. Please, for the next 3 questions, look into the camera and talk so that the audience feels you're looking at them. Just a reminder, okay?
Okay.
So thanks for that insightful set of things you just shared. If there was something that you could change, one thing or maximum two that you could change in Indian public relations, what would that be, or what would those two things be if you had the power to change that?
See, this is an interesting question, and I think the public relations professional or the reputation management professional has a slightly more complex situation than any other category in the professional services sector. You'll take a lawyer in a law firm. A lawyer in, let's say, a, a good law firm will work on will practice one kind of law. He's in the corporate law or matrimony law or 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 is on the litigation side, or he's practicing pharma sector, or something of that kind, or IT or something of that kind. Similarly, a consultant, he's a supply chain consultant in a management consultancy or a tax consultant. In public relations, there are numerous variables, and therefore, is there a kind of a certification we can have that says the person who is entering the profession is a certified practitioner? I would recommend a certification be brought in. So a certain standardization comes in for the talent that we bring in, and therefore that should go back to the academia for preparing consultants of that kind, of professionals of that kind, who can start coming and practicing right tomorrow. We struggle through it these days. The second part, Amit, I would imagine is continuous learning program. First year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year is critical for the thing. I would imagine that people should look at budgets. It's an important thing. You hire a PR firm, you say multi-stakeholder work, reputation management and issues and investor communications and this and employee branding and thought leadership, but I'll pay you only 2 lakh rupees or 3 lakh rupees. For multi-states in India, which has 40 languages, thousands of publications, how does it get done? It's difficult. And therefore, my advice is, if you really want to move the needle, a reputation shift, a communication issue to be addressed, do you have a baseline retainer budget available of $10,000 maybe for a market like India? You're paying the same thing in Dubai and same thing in Singapore, which are like tiny little piddly little things like our maybe Mumbai city or even smaller than that. So providing the resources, whether internal resources in the communication department or supporting your PR agency with that kind of budget so that it can do what is really required to be done. And the last thing I would think is there is a crisis of leadership. That leadership needs to be strengthened, rehauled. I don't know what word, I'm trying to be nice, but there is a gap between what this industry needs and the average caliber of most of the leaders. Not all, you cannot say all, but there is a deficit somewhere over there, and the industry will have to work together to say what kind of leaders will provide that consulting to the client, so that it doesn't become a hands and legs industry of providing account executives and managers who are busy running, whereas the leadership is hiding behind I don't know where.
Interesting.
So these are
Thanks for that. No, thanks for these valuable inputs. We are now going to move from the professional to the personal. I have a couple of questions to ask you about things that many don't know. Tell us about your growing up years, your childhood years. Where did you grow up in? What was going to school like? What you did before you went to college? Just throw some light on that, please.
Oh, it's a romantic story. I was born, and my early years till I was 13 or 14 were spent in a village on the outskirts of Mumbai called Govandi. It was a fishing village. So there are two communities largely, the fisher folks called the Kohlis, and those who do the agriculture called the Agris. the Kohlis and Agris village, and there were a sprinkling of other communities, small communities or households that were there. So one grew up amidst, lush green paddy fields, a creek touching the Godrej plants many kilometers away, lot of mangroves all over, chiku wadis and fanas wadis, and and clearer skies, lot of fresh air. So that was the kind of setting one grew up in. But something else I think is critical, which shaped my life. I think from there, and that was the village life had most people with limited means, but a generosity of heart that is difficult for many to comprehend. That as children we would be playing in anybody's house, and that family would take care of our meal and provide us everything. So those are nostalgic memories of that life. Of course, my early lessons in business came at the same time. We had a family grocery shop, and even before pre-teens, I would go and sit in the shop, and it was in the fish market. So one has seen life from at a very early stage, and early lessons of business came there. So I learned Marathi, for example, but not only Marathi. I speak chaste Marathi. In fact, I speak better Marathi than I can speak any other language. But I also picked up many dialects of Marathi, what the Agris and the Koli language. Of course, some Malwani, some Ghati, and it was fun, really fun.
Interesting. So thanks for throwing light on some aspects which many don't know of. Now, as a senior person, as an adult, there are things I'm sure you do beyond work, for leisure, for pleasure. How do you spend time beyond work, and what do you do that excites you, interests you, in terms of things that are outside of office related stuff?
I will be disappointing you, Amit. I my my when I have some time, I will do some more work. And I typically work about 13, 14 hours a day. I work at great lengths even on Saturdays and Sundays, and I find great tremendous amount of joy in that. Um, so what happens is that when you merge your entire identity into one thing. So for me, work is entertainment, work is also my spirituality. Let's say my moksha comes from my work. I don't need anything else. So that's how I rolled everything into one thing. On a more practical note, and these are the compromises you make in life. So one day my wife complained some 15 years ago. Oh, I loved movies before marriage. That's talking about so for 25 years I didn't show any movies, or like was busy working all the time. And
Right.
when I realized the gravity of my kind of fault, or the fault lines in our life, I promised her I'll take you for a movie every weekend till the pandemic, 13, 14 years till the pandemic hit. I took her for a movie every weekend. And I kept up my part of the content. The other thing that we started doing, which was again amounting to what you do away from work life, me and my wife and one of our sons, who is very fond of Indian history and historical places. So we started having breakfast tours. We called it breakfast tours. So what we'll do is fly down to a particular city in the morning, see a particular nice place, the historical aspect of the place, enjoy all the culinary delights of that place, and come back in the evening or latest tomorrow morning. And we do it once a month. So I think small breaks like that became my entertainment. Last but not the least, reading is uh, when time windows present themselves, I do some reading. So that is the answer to your question.
Do you get time to spend with your grandchildren and your sons as well?
Uh, uh, Very little, I would say. It's not that there's nothing, but very little. I wish I could spend more.
Interesting. So I'm almost coming to the fag end of this conversation before we do a little rapid fire. My last question to you, and you may think I'm part of the conspiracy to bring up your age time and again, and that's not the intent. But 5 years from now, in 2026, you'll turn 70. Where do you see yourself at 70 in 2026 and doing what?
Thank you for reminding me again, Amit. So my answer is God willing, and I repeat, God willing, I'll be at my desk when I'm 70, working still 12 hours a day. I can't imagine life any other way. Um, will I be a managing director of Ad Factors? I will still be at Ad Factors. Will I be a managing director? Probably no. I will hand over charge to a chief executive. I have a timeline in mind, which is about 2.5 years from now. But I'll be working still in Ad Factors. I think I will do my best to maintain my childlike curiosity. I'm very curious all the time, or my millennial like enthusiasm, if not energy, because energy wanes over time. There's so much happening now, Amit, all over every day. It's an extremely interesting and dramatic phase of mankind's history, and till the moment that I can, I want to be on the stage there, acting it out or participating in the act, rather than sitting in the audience passively, maybe on a wheelchair. No, I don't want to be there. I want to be up there fighting it out or acting it out. And of course, as I said, subject to God's will. And if God wills and God provides the energy and the means, I'll be there working.
Interesting. I was hoping the answer would be that you'll be busy writing your autobiography when you're 70, but maybe you'll do that also.
No.
But that was a fantastic conversation. I enjoyed listening to you. I enjoyed asking you these questions. As I said before we wind up, we'll ask you 10 questions or 12 questions in about 100 seconds, which are rapid fire. You have to only answer them in short words or less than 10 seconds each. Let's
But
dive
I'm
in straight
old and slow now, no? Anvi?
That's okay. I never said you are old. I said you're 65 or you'll be 70 in 5 years, but I think you have the energy of a person who's almost 25, 30 years younger than one would be at 65. And that's something that is always interesting to observe. So we'll dive in right into the rapid fire. 10 questions in 100 seconds. Tell us how do you define PR?
Okay, public relations is an arbitration process to reduce conflict in society. It is business versus stakeholders or government versus stakeholders, where the arbitration of the outcomes is the public opinion. And I think no one can do without it.
Interesting. Tell us the one book that you highly recommend to people you come across that one should read.
There are many, but the one that is my favorite is Homo Deus by Yuval Harari.
Okay. Is there one gadget that you can't do without?
Not very fond of gadgets, but I've been carrying a MacBook for a very, very long time.
Okay. On that note, what is your one favorite brand? If there is one.
So there are two which are my daily companions: my Mont Blanc pen and a notebook brand called Moleskine, which when it's not available, I get specially imported from Italy.
You seem to be a stationery lover, and that's interesting too. Tell us your one favorite holiday destination that you love going back to again and again and want to go to maybe in the future when things open up.
So the bucket list number one item is Antarctica, but the place where I like to go again and again is a place called Zermatt, Gornergrat, in a place called Zermatt in Switzerland. And I have this one hideout, which is a restaurant on a mountain top. There's nothing else, just one hotel, not restaurant, hotel on a mountain top. And around you, you're surrounded by 26 glacier-laden peaks, and there's a place like that which has so much solitude like no other place I know. So I go back there again and again.
Interesting. What is your favorite cuisine?
I'm a foodie, so all good food is fine, but I think I will make a little preference for Chinese, and I love South Indian food as well.
Okay. Let's talk about a few people in your life. Tell us one person who you consider a role model in the work you do.
As a professional, I think E. Sridharan shaped my life. He was the chairman of Konkan Railway Corporation who subsequently built the Delhi Metro, and before Konkan, he had built the Calcutta Metro. I think a man of his integrity, a man of his humility, energy, sense of purpose, clarity, objectivity. I haven't seen anybody of that kind.
Right. Name a few. We ask people to name one or two, but you can name three or four. Indian first, and then global communicators that you admire.
It's a very long list, Amit. I would start with Indians. I think in the consulting space, people who shaped my views and my life, and I learned from them without they poor people ever getting the full credit for. I think Prema Sagar would be there, Dilip Cherian would be there, my good friend Sunil Gautam in the past, NS Rajan as well. Um, Younger generation, I would say Rishi and Zach, Nitin Mantri has done a good job. Kunal Sinha is doing great work. So I think if you take two generations of communicators, on the consulting side, easier to name. On the com side, there are many outstanding.
You don't cover Bangalore. I don't know why. You only talk of Delhi and Bombay. Is there somebody in Bangalore you want to name?
I would Nandita Lakshmanan comes to my mind. She's built a very good firm. The processes, the culture, cleanliness of the business, I think is outstanding. So Nandita would be a Bangalore person.
Right. Go
But
ahead.
if you on the com side, I will do injustice if I name one or two because I
Fair.
would land in trouble. There are far too many who inspire me on a daily basis.
Fair.
Many in my own client organizations.
Okay.
Many in my own organization as well. In that sector, there are a number of inspiring leaders. If you
Sure.
go abroad, I think the people who inspire me are the people who have built, for example, the Edelman father and son are an inspiration. The person who built Brunswick Group is an inspiration. Sir Alan Parker, I think. The people who built WTO, now called Real Chemistry, the Blue Focus founders. So some of these are outstanding. Mr. Harold Burson, lifetime till 97 or 98 spent serving this industry. I think these are
Right.
absolutely wonderful people. Last but not the least, I think the father of public relations, so to say, modern public relations, Edward Barnes is a important inspiration.
Thank you. These are interesting set of names. It was more than a rapid fire kind of an answer, but that's fine. I think youngsters watching this will look up, read about these people, and gain more inspiration as well. The last two rapid fire questions. If you wrote an autobiography, what would you call it?
No regrets.
And what is your mantra of life?
Keep walking.
That was fascinating. Thank you for responding to these several questions. And I think I learned some new facets of your life in the last few minutes than I already knew. And it's always a pleasure talking to you, Mr. Bahel. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did doing it with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Amit, and all the very best wishes. And may this edition of Spectra be another spectacular event for the industry with a lot of learnings. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for everything. And we look forward to watching this together in the future. Yeah.